Happy New Year to all of you. I hope that 2025 is going to be your best year yet. I'm very excited for 2025. It's actually currently still 2024 as I'm recording this, but we're only a few days away from 2025. And I have been practicing some reflection. So I've been posting a little bit about that on social media, and I want to talk about reflecting before we start setting goals. I also want to talk about the difference, the way I see the difference between intentions and goals, because this is generally a time when many of us sit down and start thinking about our New Year's resolutions. What is our intention for 2025 or the new year? What some people pick a word, a phrase, and I am excited to do that myself today as I've been doing a lot of reflecting and now I feel like it's time to create the intentions. So I've been writing some about that, just getting prepared, but I wanted to wait until we're actually in the new year to start setting. Usually I have an overarching intention. So thinking about what is that kind of the umbrella of intention. Maybe there's some intentions that you have. I'm thinking about that for myself. And then what are the goals that are maybe under that? But I want to go a little deeper into using the force. So I read today perfectly supplied force, this phrase it was in a quote, was having to do with life force energy, right? And so perfectly supplied with this force, we all have access to life force. And so to be perfectly supplied with that, really taking that in, what would that feel like to be perfectly supplied with life force energy? For me, I talk a lot about being grounded, clear headed, being able to make decisions really easily, having more flow in your life, but also feeling really energized. So waking up, feeling ready to start your day with that kind of grounded, energized, not more of a caffeinated, filled, spastic, not that you are spastic when you have caffeine. I'm just saying sometimes people take this in the wrong direction. What I'm trying to say is that it feels like a very authentic, clear, grounded, energized. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. And something that I came across after I did the episode with Carrie Bennett. So if you haven't heard the episode with Carrie Bennett, you can go check that out. I think it was episode 3. So really recent episode that we did. And Carrie was on the Nurse Soul podcast a couple of times. One talking about the water that we make inside of us, the really special water that we make, and structured water. She is really an expert. She's my favorite expert on water. Well, and Catherine Clinton are both of them are, and Veda Austin. Okay, so I have a lot of people, and Gerald Pollack. Okay, there are a lot of people that contribute to our understanding of this really special water inside of us. But Carrie's one of my favorites. So you might want to go back and check that out. We're really talking a lot about nature and how allowing nature to help us heal and what that really looks like in that episode. And that I don't even think it was in the episode. I think it might have been afterwards. Carrie and I were chatting, and she mentioned to me Dr. William Bengston, 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 and that I would like that. And so I did. I checked out Bill Bengston's work. Of course, I love it. It's all about energy. And he is an eternal skeptic and researcher. And so the way he's gone about doing the studies in a lab where he has studied healing, energy healing specifically, and energy healing specifically for cancer. But what I was really interested in is his image cycling. So he has a whole method, and there's really 2 parts to it. And the first part is this image cycling, which is really powerful. And then the second part is the energy hands on healing. really fascinating. So, of course, I plan to talk about more of that once I've learned a little bit more of that because I'm just in the beginning stages of learning that. But what it reminded me when I was listening to Bill Bankston talk about visualization and this image cycling, he was talking about getting very, very specific. And that's what reminded me of some work I did in the early, well, maybe mid 90s. So around 1994, 5, 6, somewhere in there, and how I was learning to utilize meditation and visualization, but a specific kind of visualization where you get really, really detailed with your visualization. So I want to talk a bit about that. But let's start by talking about setting our intentions. Yeah, I think it's really helpful to before we even do that, to go back and think about to reflect on this past year. And it's easy to think about the things that haven't gone well that you don't want to bring into 2025, the things you don't want to bring into the new year. But I think it's more important to think about, to reflect on the things that have worked, that the things that have been lighting you up. Where are you really proud of what you have maybe accomplished or things that have happened in the past, in the last year? So, the last 12 months, I don't usually do this. I don't know about you, but I don't usually spend a lot of time celebrating all the things that went well in the year before I start setting intentions. And it's been a really powerful experience. Now, I learned this from a business coach. My business coach that I've worked with, Stephanie Smolders, and I worked with Stephanie. I specifically wanted a human design business coach, mainly because I was really tired of doing things the way that I've always done things. And I had this habit, I have a habit that I'm breaking where I have lots of ideas, right? I'm just one of those people. I have lots of ideas, and some of them are good. Some of them, it's not that they're bad ideas, they're just not for me. But I will have lots of ideas. And one of the habits that I have been in is to have an idea. I talk about it like it's a ball, like I'm catching a ball and then I'm already down the field before I realize that it really isn't for me, that this idea that I've already run with, I've already, I'll give you an example. Like I might have an idea for a new course before I've even really figured out if it's for me or not, and if I'm really lit up by this, and if I'm energized and that I have the energy to do this course, I will have already created an outline, sometimes put it up on the website. I mean, I'm already down the field and then realize I don't actually have the energy for it, or in a more spiritual sense, it's just not mine to do. And so I wanted to quit doing that. I really wanted to utilize my human design, the way that I'm actually designed to use my energy in the world. I wanted to practice that in my business. So that's when I hired Stephanie Smolders, who's fantastic. I really, really enjoy working with her. And then I have done some workshops with her since subsequently. And one in December, we did this whole reflection thing. And I thought, oh, I don't think I've ever really done that as I start a new year. So that's where I learned it, is from Stephanie Smolder. So you go find her, follow her, work with her if you want. And she's really fantastic. And she often offers, like right now, I'm in this TTT, don't ask me what it stands for, but I'm in this program, very reasonably priced program that's all about reflecting and getting clear about our wishes and our desires for the new year. So I'm doing this whole thing, which I love. You know, if you've ever listened to the Nurse Soul podcast, you know I love rituals. But what's also important is that if you don't have to ritualize any of this. It can be in your own way, on your own terms. The idea is to just spend some time really reflecting on what lights you up. Where are you finding that you actually have the energy right now? it can be surprising sometimes. It's not what you thought it was going to be, not what you were maybe even hoping it would be, but also celebrating really any of the accomplishments that you've experienced over the last 12 months. So things that I wasn't even really thinking about when I stopped to really reflect. One of them being I started running with one of my neighbors in January last year. I didn't want to be a runner. But I mentioned to her something about having this dream one time, or it might have been after a meditation, this visualization exercise where I actually heard, because I'm an auditory learner, but I also tend to get messages auditorily from, I don't know, guidance. I guess, guidance. Anyway, after this meditation or visualization that I had done, I heard you like running or something like that, something about running. I mentioned it to my neighbor Eileen, and she took it very literally and said, "Well, then we should make that dream come true." I was like, "No, no, no. It wasn't a dream. Like, I have a dream and I want to be a runner. No, no, no. Wasn't like that. It was just something that I heard when I was after a visualization." So anyway, she got me running. And at first, I was only running about a half a mile. And then by March, she had me running 5Ks without stopping because you don't stop. Eileen, you can stop if you have to, but that doesn't count. She doesn't count it. If you start walking, that is not a run. So she's really lovely. She's become quite a good friend, and I'm very happy to have her friendship in my life. But I wasn't even really thinking about these things that as accomplishments. So for you, maybe even pause right now, pause this podcast and do some reflecting. What's been lighting you up? Where are you most proud? What are the accomplishments that you've experienced? What are the things that have drained you? Because that's important to note as well. I tend to focus on the things that I don't. This is not. I tend to focus on what didn't work in my past. I have focused on that. And what I'm trying to get all of you to do, and what I'm trying to do, is to realize that where we put our attention and focus grows. That is mindfulness 101. So where we're putting our attention and focus, it grows. But it's also because that we're wired that way neurobiologically. Our neuroscience tells us very clearly that the more we ruminate what we're keeping our attention and focus on, it will literally grow in our lives because we are wired our brain will look for matches to that. It's going to continue to look for a match, but it's also through frequency. So that would be, I guess, maybe psychology 101 or attraction 101, that where we our frequency, so where we are putting our attention and focus, that which we are continuing to repeat over and over in terms of our thoughts, our visualizing, what we're visualizing, our words, our behaviors, all of that is literally creating a frequency that is then attracting that back to us. It's just the way frequency works. So we can utilize that. It's not that you don't want to think about what drained you, because I think that's an important piece of it. We just don't want to dwell there. You want to dwell on the things that have been working, or where you have the energy, where you feel the most energized. Okay. So once we've done a little bit of reflecting, then it's a great time to think about intentions. And the way I think about intentions is using the Force. So I'm not a huge Star Wars person, but I did see most of the Star Wars movies, I think. So if you're not a Star Wars person, sorry for this analogy, but I think about SMART goals as, something that you could have under an intention. The goals, I think, are how you are going to get to the intent, how you can live out the intention. I guess that's a better way of saying that. But I also think that Obi-Wan Kenobi did not say to Luke Skywalker, "Hey, Luke, wait a minute, what are your SMART goals?" No, no. Obi-Wan says to Luke Skywalker, "Use the Force." And I'm going to say that to you is use the force because intention is like a force. It's a frequency. And the more you tune into that, you align with that, you keep that in your forethought, you write about it, you talk about it, you visualize it, the more neuroscientifically, your brain is going to give you more of those, is going to try to match that, but also in terms of frequency. And if you really want to be full of life force around a specific intention, then it's not just about the goals or the resolutions. It's about this overarching intention. But I am going to encourage you to get really specific about the goals. So if you've never done SMART goals, I always forget what the SMART stands for. So I had to look it up. And the SMART goals are specific. I always remember that one. But I always want to make M meaningful, and it's not, it's measurable. But I think it should be meaningful and measurable, okay? But you want your goals to be really specific. You want measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, with SMART goals and kind of breaking it down. I just want to encourage you to get really specific about your overarching intention. What is that? So let's just say, because mine is always generally always around, generally always, does that make any sense? No. Mine is almost always about health. I have the left angle, if you know anything about human design, my incarnation cross. Mine is left angle cross of healing. So it's not really surprising once I started kind of digging into my human design and realizing, oh, okay, so that's why I'm almost obsessed with everything, anything having to do with health and healing. I just love it. It lights me up. I'm I'm also really lit up by improvement, kind of period. I like self-improvement. I've always been kind of attracted to the self-help, self-improvement stuff, the self-discovery, all of that. But I really love home improvement, garden improvement. I'm not even a gardener, but I love to see a garden transformed, any kind of transformation, personally, a business that's transformed. I love that stuff. It lights me up. So, my overarching intention is almost always around some kind of health, healing, transformation, that kind of thing. So, yours can be whatever it is, right? Whatever overarching intention, kind of that umbrella. And then underneath that, the how, like, what does that actually look like to you? What does that mean? And so, when I was looking at Bill Bengtson's work about visualization, and he has very specific image cycling that is really cool. I'm not going to go into that here, but I do want to just encourage us all to do is to get really, really specific because you could just say, like I want health or I want money or wealth or what's another one? To be happy. Sometimes people will say, I want to be happy. That's my resolution. That's my intention is to be happy. Well, what does that look like to you? Because that's not going to look the same to each of us and get really specific. And I also like to use the five senses. So, what does it look like? What are the images that come, the words that come, but also what does that smell? What's the smell? What are the smells that come with being happy? What the sounds, the tastes, all of the senses. And then really, really clearly, what does that feel like in your body as if it was already happening? To visualize that as if it's already yours, because if you have the desire and you have that as a want, it is already yours. It's already on its way to you. That's the way frequency works. So to get really, really specific and really, really clear about that, and then to utilize the tools that we all know help with bringing that to us just from a neuroscientific perspective, where you write it, say it, visualize it. So writing things out and being really detailed about that, and if you don't like to write, you type it out, whatever, but then actually saying them out loud. Say say verbally out loud what it is that you want and visualize that. And as many times a day as you can do that, the better. Now, with Bill Bankston's work, it's the desires and wants. So if you want to check that out, it's really about getting clear about your desires and wants, and you make a list and then you cycle that list. And what's fun about it is the more absurd, the better with that, which of course I like because that's kind of quantum. Quantum being things that you can't even really wrap your brain around in the wacky world on the and that are it's possible in the on the quantum level. And so I kind of like this exercise that he has where you make a list of 20 desired, then 20 things that you want or desire. Getting really specific about them is helpful, but then you cycle them. Now you can be grateful for those things, but it's not about making a list of a gratitude list. It's not the same as that. And you might find that to be really fun and something that you would want to add to your New Year's resolution practice. And I think it goes beyond intention where you're actually making it really clear these things that you want. And it can be really fun and it works. So that's even better. But in terms of intention, it's about using the force, right? Versus just figuring out what your SMART goals are. So, filling yourself with this perfectly supplied life force energy. How do we do that? I'm going to talk about it from a quantum perspective, as being in harmony with nature. So, just to encourage you to look at the last 12 months and see how much were you outside? How helpful was that? Whether you were outside or not outside, was that helpful or not helpful? How much natural light do you get during the day? How respectful are you of darkness? You have a mood and mitochondria quiz on my website. Some of you have taken it, but you can go take that quiz for free if you're wondering, hey, am I doing things from a quantum perspective? Am I doing things that are actually draining to my mitochondria, specifically draining my energy, draining the life force energy from me? And then maybe as part of your overarching intention, or as part of the goals that you want to put underneath that, and where you might want to get really specific around how do you support your mitochondrial health, your circadian rhythms. What does that look like for you? And getting clear about where you haven't been doing such a great job at that, which is okay. Whatever you're feeling is welcome, is okay. Because healing is in the now. All healing is self healing. And I like radical self healing, which means I'm going to like the quantum health strategies for radical self healing. But all healing is in the present and it's internal. It comes from within. So we might get help from a practitioner or somebody else can help us and be a guide to us, but in order for that healing to actually take place, that's going to be accepted internally. And it's always in the here and now. Healing takes place in the here and now. So to bring it back to the here and now. And gratitude is fantastic for changing our perspective. Gratitude is really helpful. But if you're not feeling gratitude, that's okay too. Like if you're feeling some frustration, go ahead and feel that. If you're realizing some things that didn't go really well in 2024 that you don't want to have happen, things that were draining you, that's okay to feel all that too. When I say don't dwell there, it's just because I know that where we put our attention and focus grows. That's all. But we also know that being in the here and now is where we heal. Healing is a now, it's in the now. And so to ignite that healing that's internal, that you and we're made to heal. So that's really fascinating. And then to consider what outside of ourselves can we change? What do we want to tweak in order to support that internal healing? That may or may not be a part of your resolutions, your intentions, or your goals. But just to throw that out there. So I'm looking, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Just about being really clear and detailed about having an intention that's more about using the force, and then getting clear about the details around that. Writing it, speaking it out loud, and visualizing it, so that that's really you're utilizing as much uh, of the force as you can to make that happen. So in 2025, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, and may you be free. See you next week.